Hey Paula, and welcome to the new talk for the FoodYoga Nutrition Talks. We are so glad to have you here. And we have heard a lot about you, and I think you are known as a pioneer in your country in yoga. So we would love to know a lot more about your journey and how yoga happened in your life, a little bit about that.
Thank you. And it is my pleasure to be here and speaking with you and Sattviko. My name is Paola, and yes, as a child, I was always very interested in the yoga philosophy, and especially I was very intrigued with India and Indian culture. I grew up in Honduras, which is a very conservative country, and back in the day, it was even more so. So it was difficult to get direct knowledge about Eastern philosophy. There were not many people from other cultures living in the city that I grew up in, which is San Pedro. It's the industrial capital. But it was not until I moved to the US for university that I took my first yoga asana class. And it was a vinyasa class. It was full, the energy was great. And I vividly remember walking out of this class and knowing that it was going to be something that I was going to incorporate into my life. Then I moved to New York after graduating, and in New York City, I started to work in the jewelry business, which was very exciting at first. And so I was really enjoying all of what comes with, the fashion world and jewelry industry. We were very successful at this small boutique jewelry store. We met lots of celebrities that came in. We were in several big publications like Nylon Magazine and Lips Japan. I kept up with my yoga practice throughout all of this, but maybe my third year living in New York, I started to have a lot of anxiety attacks. And so I really decided to commit to my yoga practice, and I tried to go every day, but the anxiety was still there. So one day after class, I heard my teacher speaking to one of the students, and the student was telling him the same thing, that he was having a lot of anxiety. And so I came into the conversation, and this teacher invited us both to a private meditation and pranayama class. And after that, my life really changed. I learned how to manage my anxiety just through meditation practice and understanding myself and my emotions. Became very mindful of everything that I did. Food was always something that I was very mindful about, even before I started my asana practice. But I decided that yoga was really something I was passionate about. And so in 2018, I went to Rishikesh in India to get certified with Om Shanti Om. And I started teaching pretty much ever since.
That's an awesome journey, Paula. I think what you mentioned about anxiety and the mental health, I think my own journey, I had a very similar experience when I started a business, faced issues with anxiety, and a lot of this anxiety was also creating multiple other issues with me. I had hypoglycemia, I used to feel irritated. And I think that's when yoga happened to me. So I just wanted to also understand from you, how do you combine your food with the right meditative practice? So we would love to also understand more about that, because nutrition is not what people talk a lot when we all do yoga. We are mostly talking about our poses, we are talking about the issues that yoga can solve, but we really don't talk about nutrition so much. So we'd love to get your insights into what nutrition do you think is the apt nutrition for somebody who wants to do meditation, who wants to do yoga?
Well, for me, nutrition has much more to do than the physical aspect of it. For me, nutrition is also a way of connecting with the environment. Is what I am eating safe for the environment? Is it clean? Was it produced mindfully? Does it respect my vegan or vegetarian lifestyle? So those are things that I always keep in mind. Then, of course, making sure that my body's meeting all of the necessary vitamins, proteins, fatty acids, etc., carbs. So for this, I think it is necessary to have some education. So when I first started my lifestyle as a vegetarian, I read a lot. I read a lot of books, mostly made sure that I was eating dishes that had a little bit of everything that I needed: fatty acids, antioxidants, complete proteins. And I was avoiding things that were hurtful for me. Fortunately, I've never really liked sodas or sweets or fried things. So that didn't take much of an effort.
I think the kind of energies that go inside the food. So you talked about the energies. So from my information, there are three types of energies, right? Sattvik, Rajasic, and Tamasic. So you kind of get into that classification, or how do you kind of define? Because for a commoner, for a common person, it becomes very difficult to understand what should be categorized into the right yogic food.
So a very practical way for me, if I'm going to a grocery store and it's just a regular grocery store, I really spend a good amount of time just looking at the ingredients. So if the food is organic, or if it just has natural ingredients, or as much information as possible from the actual packaging itself.
Most of the time, we are actually doing pranayama and all this other stuff to give that antioxidant rush into the body, and food is a very important part to it. So how do you kind of get that information? I mean, do you Google that? How do you look for that information when you are at a shopping center?
For me, I now eat very intuitively, so what feels good. And speaking specifically about antioxidants, I love antioxidants. I just think that they make me feel more energized. Yeah, nutrition facts don't usually mention antioxidants, so it's something that you just have to research, I think. So things that I incorporate daily are as many berries as I can, mostly blueberries, blackberries. I have some strawberries too. Green tea and matcha tea for me is very much part of my daily lifestyle and diet too. Cacao. And so you just have to research and see, what are the best sources of antioxidants. Speaking of what you eat, but as you said, if you practice other things like certain pranayamas, then that also raises those levels in the body.
I think one more question to that, Paola. So when you start your meditation or yoga practice, there's a very controversial question, or there's always a debate when I talk to people about pre-yoga nutrition. Because post-yoga, people say that take carbs, take proteins, take complex fibers and all that stuff. But there is always that debate about what should a person be eating pre-yoga, what should be the timing of that pre-yoga nutrition if somebody is taking that. So what are your views on that?
My lifestyle is very complicated in a way because I travel year round, and that means that I have to also be very adaptable to what is around me and what I can eat in the moment. If it's possible for me, before practice, I like to be more of on an empty stomach. So I try to not eat for an hour and a half or 2 hours before my practice. I do have a lot of water, and I also like to have a tea, green tea, or depending on the hour of the day, a black tea as well. But then post-practice, I get very hungry. I eat really 5 meals throughout the day because I eat in small quantities. So I have 2 snacks in the afternoons and then my main meals.
So Paola, I mean, a lot of people, they do yoga at different times of the day, right? So when somebody is doing it in the afternoon, as you rightly said that you want to have empty stomach at least an hour before your yoga practice. So, I mean, is there a recommended schedule that you would like to also share with your followers? Like, what is the apt time to eat? Because there are so many theories around intermittent fasting. There are people who say that, you should not eat beyond 7 in the evening. There are people who say that only eat after 11 a.m. in the morning. So is there any schedule that you stick to, or you maybe want to recommend to your followers and our listeners?
I think becoming knowledgeable about your own body and how you function, what foods make you feel alert and good and refreshed and light, those are the things that you should try to cater to. You know, I'm not saying to fully avoid fulfilling foods like pastas. I love pasta. It's something I have to keep in mind to control, not to eat too much of. Read and become knowledgeable. Ask your yoga teachers, ask your community about tips. But I think the most important part is to really understand how the energy in the body moves. And, you know, if one day you wake up and you are feeling lazy, then there are certain foods that you can eat that make you feel more energized.
That's very useful, Paula. I think this is some of the most useful insights I've got over the last many months that I've been talking to people. One more question, just a follow up before we have about 1.5 minutes to close this. But what is your take on the fasting? I mean, do you fast? Do you recommend people fasting? Are there any benefits to fasting?
I have fasted in the past, and honestly, for my body, I don't think fasting works. In my opinion, I think fasting could be done as kind of a cleansing for the body. But I don't think it is necessary to actually do a full fast. Just, you know, be aware of when you really want to eat, when you are hungry. If you are not hungry at all, then just don't eat, even though it's lunchtime. For me, if I were to recommend something along the lines of fasting, it would just be in the morning, right when you wake up. Allow for, you know, your energy to kind of balance, come into a balance. And when you bring food into the body, that also moves energy around. So just allow yourself to be mindful in the morning, do your practices, whatever rituals you have, or sadhana, drink a lot of water, drink tea, and wait a few hours, 1 hour, 2 hours. I sometimes wait 4 hours until I actually have my breakfast. So yeah,
I love your entire point of view about how energies of food influence your outcomes of a day, right? I mean, how do you behave? In a general way, we don't treat food as if it's kind of impacting us, but I think the way you look at food, it's more around how I want to be during my day, what are the experiences I want to have during my day, and I think that's the most mindful practice that people can have. And I think with this interview, once we publish it, we would love to actually get more questions from people who are following us, and maybe we would love to have you on another, you know, Q&A kind of round where maybe some of these questions that I was having in my mind, which I just posted to you, there are a lot of these other questions that people have, and maybe if you can actually come and, you know, also take them through this entire experience of how do you define the right food for yourself.
Thank you very much. And I would love to keep contributing. This is not something that I usually talk about, so I'm very happy that this came up.
Thank you so much, Paola. Namaste and Hare Krishna. We look forward to hosting you again, and have a good day.